There is a tiredness that sleep does not touch. It's a weariness in the bones, a quiet hum of exhaustion behind your eyes that has nothing to do with how many hours you slept. It is the fatigue of emotional labor, the exhaustion of being the one who always understands, the one who smooths things over, the one who absorbs the tension in a room like a sponge. You have given explanations when you deserved apologies. You have offered compassion to those who offered you none. You have held space for someone else's chaos until your own inner world became a cluttered, neglected room. And you called it kindness. You called it love. You called it being a good person. But lately, a strange and quiet rebellion has begun inside you. It started not with a bang, but with a flicker of resentment. A moment where you heard yourself apologize for something that was not your fault, and a cold, clear thought cut through the fog. Why am I doing this? You felt a pang of guilt for even thinking it. Because your identity, the role you have played for so long, is that of the kind one, the patient one, the one who gives. To question that role feels like a betrayal of your very essence, and yet the exhaustion deepens. The kindness, once a free-flowing spring, now feels like a debt, a tax on your existence. This is the precipice where boundless kindness begins to curdle into self-betrayal. It's a silent, lonely crisis. You look in the mirror and you see the same face, but the light in your eyes is dimmer. You feel as though you are a cup, once full, that has been poured out for so long that you've forgotten the feeling of being full. Now, you can hear the scrape of the ladle against the bottom. There is almost nothing left to give, and the world, or perhaps one specific person, is still asking for more. The most painful part is the confusion. You followed the rules of being a good human being. You were empathetic, you were forgiving, you were generous. So why do you feel so empty? Why does your virtue feel like a vulnerability, a weakness that has been expertly exploited? This is not just a passing mood. This is a profound psychological turning point. It is the moment your soul begins to demand an accounting. It asks the terrifying question, what if my goodness has been the very thing that is destroying me? This is not a question about becoming a bitter or selfish person. It is a question about survival. It is the beginning of the journey back to trusting yourself. Not trusting that others will be good to you, but trusting that you will be good to yourself, even when it's the hardest thing to do. But this is only the surface of the pain. The deeper truth is far more uncomfortable. The dynamic that has drained you is not just about someone else's hunger. It's also about your unconscious willingness to be the meal. The pattern did not just happen to you. In some way, your psyche was primed for it, prepared for it, and even consented to it, without your conscious mind ever understanding why. This is not about blame. It is about power. Because the moment you understand the unconscious contract you signed, you gain the power to finally terminate it. Think of the last time you felt that drain. It was likely a conversation, or the silence after one. You tried to explain your feelings, using careful, non-accusatory language. You watched the other person's face as they expertly twisted your words, reframed your pain as an attack on them, or dismissed your feelings as an overreaction. And in that moment, you felt it, the familiar, sickening drop in your stomach, the immediate impulse to retreat, to apologize, to restore the peace at any cost. You walked away from that interaction feeling smaller, more confused, and lonelier than before. You were holding a truth in your hands, a small, fragile flame of your own experience, and you allowed them to blow it out, convincing you it was never even lit. This is the signature of the dynamic. It doesn't just take your energy, it takes your reality. This is why the exhaustion is so profound. You are not just tired from giving. You are tired from the constant, low-grade gaslighting that makes you question your own mind. You start to believe that your needs are too much, that your feelings are drama, that your desire for reciprocity is selfish. The world starts to feel like a courtroom where you are perpetually on trial, and the person you are trying to love is both the prosecutor and the judge. This is where Carl Jung's work provides a crucial map out of this labyrinth. He would not have looked at this situation and simply labeled the other person bad and you good. He would have looked at the dynamic, the energetic circuit that is formed between you. He would have been interested in the roles you are both playing, and more importantly, the unconscious parts of yourself that are fueling this entire drama. Jung introduced the concept of the persona. The persona is the social mask we wear to navigate the world. It's the version of ourselves we present to others, the competent employee, the loving parent, the fun friend. For many who fall into this pattern of overgiving, the persona becomes that of the good person, the healer, or the rescuer. From a young age, you may have learned that your value, your safety, your very right to receive love was conditional upon being helpful, easygoing, and undemanding. You were praised for your kindness, your maturity, your ability to handle things, and so you built a very strong, very polished persona around these qualities. It became your armor and your identity. The problem is that a persona, especially one that is overdeveloped, is not the whole of who you are. To maintain the mask of the perpetually good person, you have to push away anything that doesn't fit. Your anger? Unacceptable. Your needs? Selfish. Your exhaustion? Weakness. Your desire to say no? Cruel. All of these rejected, disowned parts of yourself do not simply disappear. In Jungian psychology, they are relegated to the shadow. The shadow is the unconscious repository of everything we deem unacceptable about ourselves. It is not evil. It is simply the other side of us, the part that has been left in the dark. Your shadow holds your righteous anger, your need for boundaries, your fierce instinct for self-preservation. It holds the power you were taught to be afraid of. When your persona is the giver, your shadow becomes the taker, or at least the one who is terrified of being seen as a taker. And so you spend your life running from this shadow, proving to yourself and everyone else that you are not selfish, not demanding, not angry. You overcompensate. You give until it hurts, hoping to outrun the part of you that whispers, "What about me?" And here is the psychological mechanism that creates the trap. A person with a narcissistic pattern has a shadow of their own, one filled with insecurity, emptiness, and a desperate need for validation. Their conscious ego cannot bear to face this inner void, so they project it outward. They need an external source to constantly fill them up, to regulate their self-esteem, to be a mirror that reflects only their idealized self. Your overdeveloped, good person persona, with its suppressed shadow, becomes the perfect docking station for their projections. Your need to be seen as good perfectly complements their need to take. Your fear of your own selfish shadow makes you unable to set the boundaries that would stop them. You become two halves of a dysfunctional whole. They take and you give. They demand and you understand. They create chaos and you create order. You are, in essence, managing their unacknowledged shadow for them. And in return, you get to keep your persona of the good person intact. For a while, this unconscious bargain feels like love, or at least like purpose. But the cost is your life force. You are pouring your soul into a cracked cup. The more you pour, the wider the cracks become, and the emptier you feel. The self-betrayal is this. In your desperate attempt to be good, you have abandoned the parts of yourself that were meant to protect you. You have betrayed your own shadow. And without the shadow's input, there is no wholeness. There is no real self-trust. The turning point does not begin with them changing. It begins the moment you start to listen to the whispers from your own shadow. It starts when the exhaustion becomes so undeniable that you can no longer pretend it's just a bad week. It starts when the resentment feels less like a moral failing and more like a vital signal from a part of you that is suffocating. This is the part most people avoid. It's easier to focus on the other person's flaws, to catalog their injustices, to hope they will one day see the light and appreciate you. This focus on the other is a form of distraction. It keeps you locked in the dynamic, waiting for an external solution that will never come. The real work is to turn your gaze inward. The question is not, why are they like this? The question is, why have I tolerated this? What part of me believes that this is the love I deserve? The answer often lies in what Jungians call a complex. A complex is an emotionally charged cluster of thoughts, memories, and feelings in the personal unconscious. For many empaths, an abandonment complex, or a worthiness complex, is at the core of the pattern. Somewhere in your past, you learned a painful equation. If I am not useful, I will be abandoned. If I do not please others, I am not worthy of love. This complex acts like a magnet, drawing you to situations and people who will validate this deep-seated belief. You find someone who needs constant saving, constant pleasing, because their neediness makes you feel indispensable. For a moment, it soothes the terror of the underlying complex. If they need you this much, surely they won't leave. But it is a fragile peace. The dynamic requires you to constantly escalate your giving, while the other person's demands often escalate in turn. You are running on a treadmill, trying to earn a love that was never going to be given freely. The moment you begin to see this pattern, not as a story about love, but as the activation of an old wound, the entire dynamic begins to lose its power over you. You start to realize that the intense connection you felt was not necessarily the magic of a soulmate, but the familiar, painful resonance of an unhealed part of your own psyche. This realization is both devastating and liberating. It's devastating because it forces you to grieve the fantasy you held on to. The fantasy that if you just gave enough, you would finally be seen, loved, and made whole. But it is liberating because it returns the locus of control to you. If the pattern is, in part, being driven by something inside you, then you have the power to change it. The first step in this change is often silence. Not the manipulative silence of a power game, but the sacred silence of withdrawal. You stop explaining. You stop justifying. You stop pleading your case. You stop trying to make them understand. When you do this, something terrifying and beautiful happens. The emotional weather system that you have been managing suddenly has to rage within its own container. The chaos you were absorbing is reflected back to its source, and you will be met with a reaction. It might be anger, blame, sudden declarations of love, or accusations that you are being cruel and cold. This is the critical test. Their reaction is designed to pull you back into the dance, and the most powerful tool it uses is guilt. The guilt you feel when you first set a boundary is immense. It can feel like a physical weight, a sickness in your stomach. Your entire nervous system is screaming at you that you have done something wrong, that you are being selfish, that you are abandoning someone who needs you. This is the voice of the complex. It is the cry of the persona that is terrified of being seen as bad. You must understand this. This guilt is not a moral compass. It is a withdrawal symptom. You are withdrawing from the role of emotional caretaker. You are detoxing from the addiction of being needed. The guilt is the sound of the old psychological cage, rattling its bars, trying to lure you back inside, where it's familiar, even if it's painful. In this moment, you have a choice. You can collapse under the weight of the guilt and rush back to fix things, proving the pattern correct once again. Or you can breathe through it. You can hold your ground. You can witness the guilt without becoming it. You can say to yourself, "This feeling is a signal that I am changing. This discomfort is the feeling of growth." Imagine that cracked cup again. For so long you saw the cracks as a sign of your brokenness, your emptiness. But now, see them differently. The cracks are where the light is getting in. The cracks are the evidence that the old, rigid structure is breaking. The persona of the perfect giver is shattering, and that is not a catastrophe, it is a breakthrough. Through these cracks, the energy you were pouring outward can finally begin to pool back inside. Through these cracks, your shadow can begin to speak. The anger you feel is not a sin, it's a boundary. It's the sacred no that protects your life force. The sadness you feel is not weakness, it's grief for the love you deserved but didn't receive, both from others and from yourself. Rebuilding self-trust is not an intellectual exercise, it is a practice of the body. It starts with small, embodied acts of self-advocacy. It's the moment you feel the impulse to apologize, and you pause. You take a breath, and you say nothing. It's the moment someone makes a passive-aggressive comment, and instead of trying to decode it or fix it, you simply observe it, as if you were a scientist watching a strange specimen. You don't take it on, you let it hang in the air, belonging to them, not you. It's the moment you have a free evening, and the first thought is, who can I help? What should I be doing for someone else? And you consciously choose to do something for yourself instead. You read a book, you take a walk, you sit in silence, you fill your own cup, drop by drop. Each of these small acts is a stitch, mending the tear in your own reality. You are teaching your nervous system, cell by cell, that you are safe even when you are not pleasing everyone. You are learning that your worth is not contingent on your utility. The people who benefited from your lack of boundaries will not like this new version of you. They may call you cold, selfish, or say, "You've changed," as if it's an accusation. And the most revolutionary act of self-trust is to hear those words and agree. Yes, I have changed. I have changed from a source into a being. I have changed from a role into a person. This is the path of what Jung called individuation. It is the process of becoming a whole, integrated individual. It requires withdrawing our projections, taking responsibility for our own shadow, and differentiating ourselves from the collective expectations around us. For someone trapped in the empath-narcissist dynamic, setting boundaries is not just a self-help trick. It is a profound act of individuation. It is the declaration that I am no longer willing to be a supporting character in someone else's story. I am the center of my own. As you continue on this path, your understanding of kindness will transform. You will realize that true kindness is not boundless. Boundless giving is not a virtue, it is a trauma response. True kindness is discerning, it is wise. It knows that you cannot pour from an empty cup. It knows that enabling another person's dysfunction is not a loving act. True kindness includes kindness to yourself. It includes the right to say no, the right to rest, the right to have your own feelings and needs without having to justify them. You will learn to differentiate between empathy and enmeshment. Empathy allows you to understand another's feelings. Enmeshment forces you to carry them. If this journey names something you have felt, but never been able to put into words, take a moment to acknowledge that. This recognition is the first step out of the fog. You will start to notice the physical signs of self-trust returning. The knot in your stomach will begin to loosen. The chronic tension in your shoulders will ease. You will sleep, and for the first time in a long time, the sleep will actually feel restorative. You will look in the mirror and see a flicker of the old light returning to your eyes. But this time, it is wiser, calmer, and more grounded. This is not a fast or easy process. There will be days when the old guilt rushes in. There will be moments when you miss the familiar validation of being the good one. Be patient with yourself. You are unlearning a lifetime of conditioning. Think of the cracked cup one last time. The goal is not to glue it back together so perfectly that the cracks disappear. The Japanese art of kintsugi repairs broken pottery with lacquer dusted with powdered gold. The philosophy is that the breakage and repair are part of the history of an object, rather than something to disguise. The cracks become the most beautiful part of the vessel. Your journey of self-betrayal and recovery is your kintsugi, the boundaries you build, the shadow you reclaim, the self-trust you painstakingly restore. These are your lines of gold. They do not erase the past, but they transform it. They are a testament to your resilience. They show that you were broken open, not just broken. Trust is not rebuilt by getting an apology from them. It is not restored by them finally seeing your worth. It is rebuilt internally, one moment at a time, every time you choose yourself. It is restored every time you honor your own feelings as valid and important data. It is restored when you finally understand, in your bones, that your peace is more important than their approval. The final stage of this journey is a quiet confidence. You no longer feel the need to broadcast your boundaries or announce your transformation. Your energy simply speaks for itself. People who thrive on chaos and enmeshment will naturally drift away because the old docking station is no longer available. People who value respect, reciprocity, and wholeness will be drawn to your calm, self-possessed energy. Your kindness will still be there. It is part of who you are, but it will flow from a different place. Not from a place of fear and obligation, but from a place of genuine fullness. You will give freely and joyfully when you choose to, and you will hold back without guilt when you need to. Your cup is now your own. You are its keeper. You decide when and with whom you share its contents. This is the return of self-trust. It is not a destination you arrive at, but a way of being you inhabit. It is the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you will no longer abandon yourself. Not for anyone. The betrayal is over. The homecoming has begun. My kindness no longer requires my self-betrayal. And this truth lands not as a thought, but as a physical event. You feel it in your posture. The chronic, subtle clenching in your jaw begins to soften. The shallow breathing that has been your baseline for years gives way to a spontaneous, deep sigh of relief, as if a lung you didn't know was constricted has just opened. This is the body memory layer, the somatic ledger where every act of self-abandonment was recorded. For years, your body has been in a state of low-grade siege. The tension in your neck and shoulders was the physical manifestation of carrying burdens that were not yours. The persistent feeling of a knot in your solar plexus was the energetic signature of swallowed words and suppressed needs. Your body learned that to be safe, it had to be braced, ready to absorb a blow, ready to perform. This is what Jungians might call somatic armoring, the physical defense built to protect a vulnerable psyche. The process of reclaiming yourself is therefore a process of unarmoring. It happens in moments that feel both profound and ordinary. It's the moment you catch yourself holding your breath while reading an email and consciously exhale, letting your shoulders drop. It's feeling the ground beneath your feet and realizing you are actually here, in your own body, not floating somewhere above yourself, anxiously monitoring the room. Your body begins to trust you again. It starts to believe that you will not throw it into the fire to keep someone else warm. This trust is rebuilt with every choice to move away from a draining conversation, every decision to rest when you are tired instead of pushing through, every time you eat a meal slowly, tasting the food, rather than eating distractedly while worrying about someone else's problems. These are not trivial acts. They are sacred rites of return. They are messages sent directly to your nervous system, rewriting the old code of, "I am only safe if I am useful," with the new, truer code of, "I am safe because I am here. I belong to myself." As the body unarmors, the shadow has more room to breathe. And it's here that the deepest work unfolds. The draft spoke of listening to the shadow's whispers. But what does that truly mean? It means you stop judging the messages it sends and start translating them. The flash of anger you feel when someone is late yet again is no longer a sign that you are an impatient or bad person. You learn to hear it as the shadow's clear voice saying, "My time is valuable. This pattern is disrespectful." The pang of envy you feel seeing a friend pursue a creative passion is no longer a source of shame. You translate it as the shadow's longing. This is a part of you that has been starved. This is a desire you also hold. Even the parts of the shadow you fear most, your capacity for rage, your desire for solitude, your brutal honesty, are not demons to be exorcised. They are protectors, guides, and sources of immense power that have been distorted by neglect. The rage is the energy needed to defend your boundaries. The desire for solitude is the wisdom to recharge and reconnect with your own soul. The brutal honesty is the key to authentic relationships, the ones that can withstand truth. This is the integration of the shadow. It's not about becoming a dark or angry person. It is about becoming a whole person. It is about turning to face the dragon you were taught to flee, only to find it is guarding your own greatest treasure. And part of that treasure is what Jungians call the golden shadow. These are the magnificent, positive qualities that you also disowned because they felt too dangerous. Perhaps as a child, your natural leadership was called bossy. Your deep insight was called too intense. Your creative fire was called unrealistic. So you packed away your strength, your brilliance, and your passion into the shadow, right alongside your anger and your needs, because you learned that to be loved, you had to be smaller, quieter, and less dazzling. Reclaiming your golden shadow is a breathtaking part of this journey. It's the moment you speak up in a meeting with an idea you would have previously suppressed, and you feel a thrill of authentic power. It's allowing yourself to be truly brilliant, passionate, or deeply spiritual without apology. It is giving yourself permission to shine, not for external validation, but for the sheer joy of expressing the totality of who you are. As you do this work, you will notice more concrete inner signs of the shift. The constant, chattering inner critic in your head begins to lose its volume. Its voice is replaced by a quieter, calmer inner witness. When you make a mistake, the new voice doesn't say, "You idiot, you've ruined everything." It says, "That didn't work. What can we learn? How can we be kind to ourselves right now?" You develop a new tolerance for ambiguity. Before, everything felt like a crisis to be solved, an emotional fire to be put out. Now, you can sit in the space of not knowing. You can allow a problem to exist without immediately needing to fix it. This creates a profound sense of inner spaciousness. Your inner world is no longer a frantic command center, but a quiet, open landscape. You are no longer just reacting. You are responding from a place of centered calm. And then comes the test. The universe will always give you a final exam to see if you have truly learned the lesson. It will likely come in a form that is achingly familiar, A text message, perhaps, late at night. It's from them. The one person who was the epicenter of your self-betrayal. The message is a masterpiece of subtle manipulation. It's not overtly demanding. Instead, it might be laced with vulnerability, a hint of crisis, a nostalgic reference to a good time you shared, and a question that gently pulls for your energy. I was just thinking about you. How have you been? The old you would have felt an immediate jolt, a surge of adrenaline mixed with guilt and a sense of responsibility. Your heart would have started beating faster. Your mind would race, trying to decode the message. Are they okay? Do they need me? Maybe they've changed. If I don't respond, I'm a cruel person. The compulsion to reply, to manage their feelings, to offer comfort, would have been overwhelming. But now, something is different. You feel the jolt, yes, the body remembers. For a fleeting second, the old panic flickers, but it is no longer a tidal wave that sweeps you away. It is a ripple in a much larger, deeper ocean of calm. You breathe. You put the phone down. You feel the ground under your feet. You do not react. You witness the old pattern arise within you, and you greet it with compassion, but not obedience. You say to that panicked part of yourself, I see you. I know you're scared, but we are not doing this anymore. We are safe. You wait. You wait an hour or a day. You wait until you are responding from your center, not from their trigger. And when you do reply, your response is completely new. It is not cold or vengeful. It is not a long explanation of your boundaries. It is simple, clear, and energetically neutral. Perhaps it is just, I hope you are well. That is all. No question mark. No opening for more. It is a polite, closed door. It does not invite them in, but it is not thrown in their face. It simply communicates a new reality. My energy is no longer available to you in that way. In that moment, you pass the test. You have not controlled them. You have not changed them. You have controlled the only thing you ever could, your own response. You have chosen self-loyalty over the familiar comfort of the old dynamic. The pride and peace that washes over you in that moment is more profound and more nourishing than any crumb of validation they ever gave you. This is the homecoming. It is not a grand, cinematic finale, but a series of quiet, revolutionary choices. The journey does not end with you becoming an unbreakable fortress. It ends with you becoming a sanctuary for yourself. The walls you build are not to keep the world out, but to create a sacred space within, where your soul can finally rest. You learn that your sensitivity is not a liability, it is a superpower, but one that requires an operating manual. The manual includes chapters on rest, on discernment, on the sacred art of saying no. You learn that your capacity for love is infinite, but your time and energy are not, and that is okay. The quiet joy of your own company becomes your most cherished possession. You find that you are not lonely when you are alone. You are in good company. You can drink a cup of tea in silence and feel more connected and whole than you ever did in the midst of a chaotic relationship that demanded your all. Your kindness, once a source of deep pain, becomes a source of deep joy. Because now it is authentic. It flows from a full cup, offered by choice, not by compulsion. You give when it feels expansive and joyful, and you withhold when it would be a betrayal of yourself. And you trust, with a deep, quiet certainty, that this is the truest kindness of all. The betrayal is over. The cracks have been filled with gold, and you are, at last, home.